This is the R.I.S.E Weekly Review for December 14th through December 20th, 2015. Two 14-year-old girls were injured by broken glass after someone fired shots at their home on the 6700 block of Arkansas Avenue in Hammond on Monday. Monday around 11:25 a.m., a 27-year-old man was wounded in a drive-by on the 1500 block of East 73rd in South Shore. The man was hit in the left calf and was last reported in good condition. A 19-year-old was shot on 78th and Bennett around 12:30 a.m. on Friday. He was outside when he heard shots and realized he had been hit in the armpit. He was taken to Stroger Hospital in critical condition. Around 1:30 a.m. Friday, a 24-year-old man was sitting in a vehicle on 78th and Bennett when another vehicle pulled up and someone inside began firing shots. He was hit several times and taken to Northwestern Memorial Hospital in critical condition. As always, our thoughts and prayers are with the victims and their families. Hammond residents are being warned to watch out for a possible sexual predator after a man tried to lure a young boy near a bus stop on Monday. The child was walking around 7 a.m. on the 500 block of Chicago when allegedly a man started running towards him and yelling, "Come here, little boy." The man is described as 5 feet 10 inches, wearing a hoodie and having possible braids. 3 people, including a Calumet City man, are facing charges of conspiracy to distribute a controlled substance in Hammond. The charges stem after an ATF informant made 3 controlled purchases from the accused at the Luke Oil Station on State Line Road and a Family Dollar on Sibley. The defendants were traced to a Calumet City home where they claimed guns, drugs, and prostitutes working for one of the defendants were kept and used. On Monday, the 14th, a 42-year-old firefighter died from an injury received while searching for victims in a fire on 92nd and Baltimore. Daniel Capuano, who was a 15-year veteran of the fire department, was killed when he fell 2 stories from an open elevator shaft. The building was undergoing renovation, but some of the work being performed at the site was unauthorized, including the removal of the elevator. According to the city inspectors, the owner, Jay Patel, had permits for drywall and electrical work, but nothing for the elevator shaft. A requirement of the elevator shaft permitting process is ensuring protective barriers are set up during the work. An investigation is currently underway, and the circuit court is determining possible criminal charges. The wife of Capiano filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the building owner. Activists and organizations are celebrating a victory this week after the University of Chicago has agreed to reopen its trauma center on Wednesday. The 5-year battle started following the death of fearless leading by the youth activist Damian Turner. Turner was shot in a drive-by shooting and taken miles away to Northwestern Hospital where he died. The University of Chicago Hospital was only 3 blocks away, but had shut down its trauma services for adults. Studies show the chances of death from trauma dramatically increase with the time it takes to receive advanced medical care at a trauma facility. Despite the victory, the southeast side of Northwest Indiana still contains some of the longest travel times to a trauma center, and there is a growing need due to increased violence and auto accidents along nearby highways. Friday, students at George Washington High School continued their protest over the vote of the local school council to remove Principal Gallick by staging a sit-in. Around 10:30 a.m., students gathered in the hallways of the school and sat down in a peaceful protest to demand CPS hear their demands. Outside, a group of protesters gathered to show their support for the children. Student representatives met with the principal to present him a list of their demands, which included a request that he fight the decision of the R.I.S.E.
We were in the hallway, and after the period bell rang and all the kids came out and sat down. They're very respectful, they're very peaceful, they're sitting in the hallway, they're quiet. We just identified about 22 kids as leaders, brought them into the principal's office to talk about what their demands are and what they would like to see changed. So I told them that I was very proud of them for, sitting down for what they believe in, and to make sure they keep it respectful so they don't lose their credibility, and, to keep fighting, just to keep pushing what you need to push for.
Principals have the option to appeal the decision of an R.I.S.E, and even if an R.I.S.E votes not to renew a contract, the principal can reapply for the position. Despite R.I.S.E elections being a democratic process, it was discovered that several of the current R.I.S.E members were not elected but appointed after the children of other R.I.S.E members left the school and they were pushed to resign. The student protests seem to have moved the principal into reconsidering his decision on whether to fight for an appeal. Parents, teachers, and residents vowed to continue in their efforts to call for the resignation of current R.I.S.E members, an investigation into their dealings, and to elect new membership. The R.I.S.E elections are in April. Also on Friday, residents joined activists from all over the city in calling for the resignation of Mayor Rahm Emanuel, Anita Alvarez, and for the Department of Justice investigation to be expanded and include the city as well.
Going on downtown, we're right here, walking down Wabash in Washington. We're joining protesters from all around the city. A lot of protesters are calling for the resignation of Anita Alvarez and Rahm Emanuel, along with a thorough investigation of the entire city of Chicago by the Department of Justice. We're hoping that, just like what was going on earlier at Washington High School, people got to step up and get their voices heard.
The march shut down Michigan Avenue for a time, and despite the noticeable inconvenience, many of the cars stopped in traffic, cheered protesters, honked in solidarity, and even gave high fives to marchers who passed chanting calls for justice. The march comes as more stories continue to be released of abuses coming out of local police departments and inactions by the state's attorney's office. A story broke this week of an incident several years ago in South Suburban Linwood in which an officer was caught on surveillance video knocking out a handcuffed prisoner with a punch or an elbow. While a civil lawsuit filed by the victim was settled, the State Department has still not filed any charges related to the misconduct by the officer. The Chicago's teacher union has received over 96% agreement from voting members to authorize a strike if negotiations with CPS fail. The CTU has criticized the administration for failing to listen to educators and for continuing to threaten them with cuts and layoffs. If a strike does occur, it is expected to still be months away as negotiations on the contract are still in their early stages. The earliest teachers could walk off is in March. Finally, the USW announced a tentative agreement on Sunday for a contract with US Steel that will impact 18,000 workers. The workers have been without a contract for 3 months, and many feared negotiations would take a turn for the worse on several occasions as companies continue to try to find ways to increase their profits on increasingly fluctuating markets. However, the talks between the USW and ArcelorMittal are on hold after a similar agreement was not able to be established. The company has lost some profits due to competition in foreign markets and has attempted to get workers to pick up the loss through cuts in healthcare, wages, and employment. The hold in negotiations will continue until after the holidays. Now for some brief announcements. Groups including the Southeast Environmental Task Force are urging residents to continue to call 311 to report concerns over odor pollution, particularly in the Slag Valley, Saldering, and Jeffrey Manor areas. Residents are asked to document the date, time, and service request number of their calls and report it to the Southeast Environmental Task Force for documenting purposes. Finally, we would like to extend our warm wishes for a happy holiday season to all of our friends, family members, supporters, and fellow residents. Thank you guys for joining us for this week in review. Peace.